Welcome back to part 2 of our series on how to set up your smart home. Episode 1, we focused on the different foundation parts of how to set up your smart home. Episode 2, we're going to focus on light switches, LEDs, all those different things. As you can see, we still have a lot going on here. It's an ongoing renovation, so things aren't done. So don't judge me for all the stuff that's in my house, but I have more ideas than I have time for. First thing you need to think about is how you're going to control all your lights. So each different light is most likely going to have a different app to communicate with. And you don't want to be jumping back and forth between different apps to control your lights. So you need one central foundation to control them. I started off with Google Home, because it was quite good in 2019 when it first came out, but it's been on a slow decline and it's just gotten worse every year. You also have Amazon, which is just full of ads now, and pretty much no one recommends using that. So if don't think of using that one. If you have Apple, you got HomeKit. I don't use HomeKit, so I can't speak to too much about it, but the best one is Home Assistant. Now, Home Assistant is much more complicated because it's a community-led operating system. So there's a lot more to learn about it, but overall, it's the best platform to use. Now, the only downside of Home Assistant is its voice control capabilities. There are ways now to have a voice assistant in there, but it's continually getting better, but it's not optimized. So what I found out to be the best combination is using Google Home to control your lights when you want to actually control them with your voice, and use Home Assistant for all your routines. And that will give you the best combination. I've had all sorts of issues with Google Home. Some of my routines work on some of my speakers and some of them don't. So basically, if I want some of my routines to activate, I have to yell it inside my house and hope one of the Google Homes that are throughout my house will actually be able to activate that routine. And other ones will just say, they'll start playing a song because they think the routine I'm trying to ask for is a song. So Google Home is not the best one for your main foundation to use. So for Google Homes, I have about 15 of these running throughout the house. So what I use these guys for is for bedrooms and bathrooms for controlling routines. In the kitchen, I like to use displays. So I use it mostly for playing YouTube videos, but it sits right on here. You know, when I'm having breakfast, I can watch it. I have it on a little swivel so I can spin it around. And we use that primarily for YouTube videos. And you can get camera displays up on there as well, if useful. And then if we follow me over here, we have a Google Home Max, which is a great speaker for using whole house audio for playing throughout the house. It's a central location. We also have amplifiers that have Google Home integrated into them. But again, it's a little bit more complicated to get running. When you tell Google to play something, sometimes it's able to turn on the amp and play it in that room. Sometimes it's not. So it's nice to have one of these larger speakers for just broadcasting music throughout your house. Each of my rooms or main entertainment rooms have surround sound systems in the ceiling, so they have quite good audio. But I primarily don't use that for playing music throughout the house. You can also see in this room here, we have some of the speakers built into the walls, and we have speakers up in the ceiling above. And they're all basically controlled from this guy here. And it's more if we have people over for entertaining that we use this speaker system. Okay, next we're going to talk about different types of LEDs. So there's all different types to go with. First, you want to talk about 12 or 24 or 5 volts. Pretty much, I just use 12 volts and 24 volts. The only time you want to use 24 volts LEDs is for really long runs, longer than 5 meters. Because what will happen is, as the length increases, the LEDs will get dimmer towards the end, where the power supply isn't able to reach all the way. These are just standard. You can get them in warm white, cool white. They're just, I think these are 60 LEDs per meter. I rarely ever use these. Maybe you use them in under countertop lighting, just pointing down that you just want to have a little bit of light shining down. They're my least used LED. Next, we would move to this, which is like the gold standard for me for putting LEDs everywhere. These ones have RGB module here, and then I use warm white module here. So you're able to get a natural light and then a color light here. So those are a great light to use anywhere in the ceilings that you want to create a mood. Next up we have here, I use these fairly often too. They're actually better but worse in a way. So as you can see, they have the RGB module and then they have a chip on there that's warm white, cool white. So you're able to get any combination of ultra cold white to ultra warm white to natural white. The problem is Google has issues controlling getting the right color temperature with it. So I find that just these ones with warm white are actually nicer to use, but you do have more options with this style of LED. These are called CCT LEDs. The next one we move to are Cobb LEDs, which are constant LEDs. So these ones you can get in any different color. They all look the same. They'll all have this yellow look. They'll be warm white, cool white, whatever. They'll all look like this. Again, the benefit is put these in your ceiling that are pointing down. If you just want a one color to be continuous, then this would be the LED to go with. You are going to have a higher power supply for these because there's a lot more LEDs per meter and it's going to generate more heat. And then this one I rarely use. They're quite expensive, but they're great in that circumstance for that lamp. My lamp over there just came with a standard LED in it and ended up cutting out the LED that was in there, putting an RGB controller in there and a different power supply. And now I have the ability to change colors. So these are constant RGB LEDs with warm white, cool white. So this basically is everything. Downside again, expensive and uses a lot of power. So I don't use those for very long runs. Very short runs are ideal for those. Next, we move into the ones I haven't used too much yet, but you see them lots on like Instagram and TikTok videos. These ones are digital LEDs. Now, the advantage of these are every individual LED can be controlled independently. So you get those cool effects where the colors can change gradually along a chain. You can get the LEDs to turn on in a pattern and run across. The downside is you have to have a computer to control them. And every time you'd want to change the light effect, you're going to have to change the program on the chip. So they're not that useful. My only application I'm putting them into is my television. I put a LED, these LEDs around the back of my television, and I link it to a computer that actually has an HDMI input. So the input comes into the box and it realizes what different colors are on which side of the screen and will change those LEDs to match. So if there's an explosion on one side of the screen, the colors will light up orange in that color. And if it's blue at the bottom of the screen, the LEDs will light up blue there. So there's no fiddling around with settings. Once it's set up, it just runs and it gives you a really cool effect. That's probably the only time I'd recommend using these. Otherwise, it's just going to be more of a strobe light and irritating effect in the house. Next, we have outdoor LEDs. Now, there's multiple different types of outdoor LEDs. These are the initial ones I used. They have like a silicone layer over top, which protects the LEDs from moisture, but I've had them out for 5 years and some of them have started to fail now. So they mostly fail right at the connection point where wire gets in. So it's not the best type of LED. They will last a few years, which is pretty good for outdoor LEDs. These ones are, as I said, Cobb LEDs, single color ones. They have a sealed boot fitting over top at the front and back side here. So these ones will be more reliable for an outdoor application. But anytime you're using LEDs outside, make sure they're at least under an eave or something. Like I've seen people put them in their driveway in the floor. I just think the water is going to pool inside there and destroy them in no time. So I wouldn't recommend having them in that application. You'd have to have an overhang and the LEDs tucked underneath. And don't expect them to last 10 or 15 years. Like they will fail and you will have to change them. So here's a perfect example of two different types of LEDs. You can see these type of lights here that run across, and they're 30 LEDs per meter. You have to maximize power usage, heat generation for different types of lights. So I don't mind this dot pattern for my RGB lights that can change color and just for mood lighting. And for this little lamp, I had to modify it. It uses a constant LED pattern. So you can change it from cool white to warm white to different colors as well. This one's a lot more expensive to buy these type of lights, and it's going to use a lot of energy. For a long run like this, it wouldn't really be effective. I think the power supply would have to be so huge to power it that it's not useful.
Oh, that was the next thing I want to talk about. Different types of switches.
Okay, so here are some different types of light switches I use. So this is a basic light switch here, a Wi-Fi light that just goes on and off, which is one of my first ones I used. This one has 3 different switches on it, so more efficiency with space, and it's actually a Zigbee switch. We'll get more into those different standards shortly. And then here we have 2 examples of different types of dimmer switches. This one you control it through here, this one through here. This one had issues that, I wasn't able to increase the brightness holding up, just going down. I had to talk to Google to increase the brightness, so I've been starting to phase these ones out in favor of this style. You also have to look if you have a 3-way switch. This is a 3-way switch. You control the switches from 2 different switches, and it's dimmable. They're quite hard to find, these type. This one is just a dimmer switch that is not a 3-way. So you have to look at all these different things before picking the right switch for your house. So for controlling the lights in my ceiling that don't have light switches, which are generally your RGB lights, you're going to have to use controllers like this. These are RGBW, warm white, cool white. They're all controlled through an app only, so you won't have a light switch option for those. Now also, all LED lights are DC power, so you need to have a transformer for all of them. Next thing you have to think about is what protocol you want to use. When I first started, I only thought there was Wi-Fi available, so all my lights ended up being Wi-Fi. The problem with that is that's also dependent on how you set up all your access points. So that goes back to talking our first video about having a strong foundation. Because you have some lights in the far side of your house, and you only have a few access points. They're not going to communicate well to get back to the access point. So that's where Z-Wave, Zigbee, and Thread come in. Now, these are all different ways of communication, different communication protocols. The most common one you'll see is Zigbee. You'll see a lot of switches online that use Zigbee, and it's what I chose to use because it's the most readily available switch. So what you need for that is you need a border router first, which is the part that connects the whole Zigbee network together. So all the different lights will eventually communicate back to that device, and that device is connected via Ethernet back into your network. And the benefit with that is the more devices you get, the more they communicate together and make a mesh, and your network actually gets stronger the more devices you have. If you end up using Wi-Fi, the more devices you have, it starts clogging up your network. So if you're going to put in like 10 or 15 lights, maybe Wi-Fi is fine, but it's higher power usage. But if you're using Zigbee, you're going to end up with a stronger network the more and more you build. So that would be my recommendation. There's also Z-Wave, which is another standard, and the benefit to that one is it uses a different wavelength. So with Zigbee, it's still on the 2.4 gigahertz network, which all smart devices use for Wi-Fi as well. So you're going to have that 2.4 gigahertz on Wi-Fi, you're going to have that 2.4 gigahertz on Zigbee. Z-Wave uses 900 megahertz, so it's on a different bandwidth, so you're not going to have as much stuff trying to all share that same airspace, so it ends up being more beneficial. The problem with it is the lights are more expensive because they have to go through a regulatory process to be certified to be Z-Wave lights, so you're not going to find as many options available, and they're going to be more expensive. So I haven't gone into that side of lighting yet. And then there's the newest standard, which is Thread, and it ties in with Matter. So Thread is another protocol which is just like Zigbee and Z-Wave. The benefit is when they all intercommunicate together, they don't all have to go back to the same node. They can communicate directly with each other. So the problem with Z-Wave and Zigbee is there's always one thing that does the final communication back to the main device. And if that one breaks down, your whole Z-Wave or Zigbee network can break down. With Thread, it will automatically self-heal itself. So if that one device that's finally communicating back with a border router goes down, it'll bounce the signals around and find the most optimal route to get back. So theoretically, it's a better standard. The problem is most people have used it, say it's just not that consistent and it's still not there yet. So not too many people have switched over to Thread. So I haven't done anything with Thread yet. I've still just been using Zigbee and it works great. The one time I've had to have two Zigbee networks is one for my garage and one for my house. So I have two border routers running. I wasn't able to have the border router in my house connect to the lights in my garage. So I had to have two to make that system work. I also use Wi-Fi lights outside as well to help with that issue as well. Please like and subscribe if you like this type of content. We're going to go into part 3, which is making your smart home truly smart with using sensors. We're going to talk about using light sensors, motion sensors, Bluetooth sensors, all things to make your home react to you moving through your house and not you having to talk to your smart home to make it smart.